My name is Emma. I live with my parents. I have a sister named Sophia. She's more beautiful and smarter than me, and our parents have always adored her. As for me, I've always been treated like I'm invisible by my parents.
And hiding in your room again. You're such an idle youth. Don't think we'll be around forever.
They would say to me, I never thought they'd be around forever, and I have my own thoughts and actions. But my parents have labeled me as a NEET and don't take me seriously. One day, my sister spoke to me.
Poor thing, you're neither cute nor exceptionally talented. Don't you ever wonder what you're living for?
I'm happy with my life, so don't say weird things.
Oh well, do as you please, but let me tell you something great.
Something great? What?
I'm getting married to a very handsome and high-income man.
Oh, that's good for you.
Jealous? You must be. You'll never get married.
My sister assumed I couldn't get married and kept bragging about herself. I'm not particularly interested in marriage, so whether I can get married or not doesn't matter to me. I was planning to attend my sister's wedding since she's family, but then... What? You're coming to my wedding? Yeah, is that a problem?
Of course it's a problem. If a bottom-feeder idle youth like you comes, it'll ruin the ceremony.
What's a bottom-feeder idle youth?
A bottom-feeder idle youth is just that you can't do anything. Completely useless.
Why are you saying such horrible things? I just want to celebrate your wedding.
I don't need your congratulations. Don't come.
My sister despised me and repeatedly told me not to come. Mother and father also said that a bottom-feeder idle youth like me shouldn't come. But I thought it would be a problem for my sister if no family members were there, so I decided to attend. Weeks on the wedding day, as I was walking in my dress, father and mother found me.
What are you doing here? I told you not to come to the wedding.
My parents yelled at me. Hearing a commotion, my sister approached.
Why is a bottom-feeder idle youth like you here? I didn't invite you.
But if there's no family, it might look suspicious. I thought it would be possible.
But if there's no family, it might look suspicious. I thought it would be better for you if I was here.
Why are you thinking unnecessary things? Your existence is a secret to the other family, you know. Why are you thinking unnecessary things? Your existence is a secret to the other family, you know.
Oh, what?
You didn't know about the family dinner, did you? We didn't invite you?
Why would you do something so cruel?
Cruel? This is only natural. You'd just be in the way. If Sophie said we have a bottom-feeder idle youth in our family, the marriage might be called off. That's why we didn't invite you.
My sister laughed hysterically as she said this. My parents were smirking. The three of them had conspired together, in their determination to erase my existence. I became deeply saddened.
Get out, you useless bottom-feeder idle youth!
My sister yelled at me with fury. I realized that nothing I said would matter to this family anymore. So, I reluctantly decided to leave the venue.
I'm going home then. Goodbye.
My family pointed and laughed at me as I said this. Holding back my frustration, someone called out to me on the way. "Boss, good work today?"
Good work. Wait, what are you wearing?
"Yes, I'm the one getting married. Didn't you know?"
Hey, what?
Wait. How do you know Caleb? And what's this about being the boss?
As Sophia, this person is the president of my company.
No way. You're the president?
President, what's your relationship with Sophia?
She's my sister.
Sophia is your sister? But I didn't see you at the family greeting.
Well, my sister didn't take me to the greeting.
Why would she do such a thing?
She thought I was a bottom-feeder idle youth.
Sophia, is this true? Caleb yelled at my sister.
But she's always in her room, just staring at her computer.
Don't joke around. Plus, the boss gives us precise instructions from home. She's a skilled executive.
Caleb's furious defense finally made my sister realize the gravity of what she had done.
I didn't know. Emma, I'm sorry. I never thought.
It's fine, sister. I understand what kind of person you are now. I'm going home, so I'll call the limousine.
But a limousine, a luxury car.
Astrid, you're in.com. You're leaving.
As I said that, Caleb became very angry with my sister.
Hey, what are you doing? Sophia Chana, how dare you speak to the boss like that?
But I didn't know. How can you blame me for not knowing?
Ignorance is no excuse. Boss, I apologize for Sophia's rudeness.
It's fine. She's my family, so you don't have to apologize.
No, I'll take responsibility and call off the marriage with Sophia.
What? Caleb, what are you saying?
Quiet. I can't forgive someone who disrespects the boss.
Caleb was angry as if it were a personal affront to him.
Why are you so angry? Yes, I said terrible things to Emma, but it's strange for Caleb to be angry about it.
You see, I owe the boss a lot. I kept changing jobs and my work history was a mess. I couldn't get hired anywhere, and the only places left were companies that ignored workers' rights and welfare, forcing people to work in unfair conditions. As when I was about to give up and take a job at one of those places, my application was accepted, and I got an interview at the boss's company.
Caleb was talking about when he first got hired at my company.
It brings back memories. I remember that happening.
The boss said she wanted to see me, not my resume. After talking with me for a while, she understood who I was and hired me. The boss's company offers fair working conditions and values me properly. But meeting the boss changed my life.
Is that so? I didn't know. Well, what a wonderful story.
My sister was desperately trying to get on Caleb's good side. However, Caleb saw through her cunning plan and became even angrier.
Obie's trying to win me over. But I have no intention of forgiving the disrespect you showed to the boss.
Caleb's genuine anger left my sister trembling.
Come, Oren. Father, say something?
My sister was trying to get help from father and mother. But father and mother were just cowering and didn't seem to want to help.
Didn't mean to blame Emma as much as Sophia did.
That's right. This is all your own doing.
What? What will I do if the wedding is canceled?
My sister was crying and screaming. Caleb calmly explained what would happen next.
So if we cancel the wedding, there will be a cancellation fee. If we cancel on the same day, it will be 100 W1 Rob Simon.
What? 100? How much money is that?
Your total cost of the wedding was $30,000, so it'd be $30,000. Well, the total cost of the wedding was $30,000, so it would be $30,000. So it would be...
What? I have to pay $30,000, even if it's canceled.
That's how cancellation fees work.
No way! Then we should just continue with the wedding.
Alright, but I won't do that. Icha, I can't forgive what you said to the boss, and I expect you would continue to speak abusively if we got married. I can't live with someone so dangerous.
Dangerous? That's not true. I won't say anything mean to Emma from now on. Please marry me.
Let's you think, boss.
Caleb turned to me and I calmly replied. She's saying this now, but she's just saying what sounds good to get through this situation. If you get married, she'll surely start abusing you too. Saying things like, it's lazy not to do housework just because you're working, or being a homemaker is hard, so help with the chores.
I see. And it's better to call it the marriage? I'll go change.
Wait, don't go. Caleb. Emma, what are you doing? My wedding is ruined.
My sister became even angrier at my words.
If you hadn't come to the wedding venue in the first place, none of this would have happened. It's your fault. Take responsibility. Bring Caleb back right now?
Understand how you feel, but Caleb seems to have lost his will to marry. If you get married in this state, it will only be painful for both of you. I think it's better to call it off.
What should I do then? You heard the cancellation fee, right? He said $30,000. That's a huge amount.
Yes, it is. Even if we split the cancellation fee, it's $15,000. No, if they say it's my fault, I might have to pay the whole amount. Well, that's a possibility, but what can you do? You've done enough to deserve it. But what can you do? You've done enough to deserve it. Honey, I just said some harsh words. To cancel the wedding over that, it's too much. Don't tell me, it's Caleb's decision. Hey, father. Mother, say something. When my sister turned to our parents, they suddenly became very friendly towards me.
Wow, so I never knew Em had become a boss.
Though my ex as a mother, I'm so proud.
Oh, anyway, I always believed in Emma, I believed in Emma. Go-san, she's a real go-getter. But from now on, let's live relying on Emma's money.
Other and mother said that. Relying on my money. You must be joking. They had also been verbally abusive to me, so I didn't want to spend money on them.
Sorry, but I don't want to live with my family anymore. I'm going home now to look for an apartment to live alone.
What? Why?
Also, some memories, we've been living together all this time. I suddenly live alone.
I lived with you because I believed in something called family bonds. I thought that if we lived together, you may understand my job someday. But the result was different. You never understood my job and even insulted me. And now you want to rely on my money. Would you want to live with such people?
I see. I understand. I'm sorry.
Please continue living with us.
I said no, didn't I? I don't want to live with you anymore.
Even though I said that, father and mother kept insisting.
What if we kick Sophia out of the house? And you'll live with us, right?
What? Wait, father? What are you saying?
Ask what's up. I was a fool to expect anything from you. He'd be better off living with them than with you.
It was the moment father abandoned my sister. As a family member, I didn't want to witness such a cruel moment.
Father, just so you know, I hate people who abandon others so easily the most.
What are you saying?
People like that will eventually flip-flop on me too, so I can't live with them.
Hey, you stupid husband. What are you doing failing to lure her in?
Shut up.
While father and mother were arguing, Caleb returned, now dressed in casual clothes.
What's going on? You still fighting?
Caleb, I can't believe you really went to change. I told you I would, didn't I? What are you talking about? Are you really going to call off the wedding? I hate this. Why is this happening?
Yeah, just so, you're the cause, so you'll have to bear a full cancellation fee. I already talked to our parents about it.
What? That's terrible. It's not just my fault, is it?
It's no matter how you look at it, it's your fault.
Hey, you be quiet.
How dare you tell a boss to be quiet? I won't tolerate any more insults to the boss.
Wait, please wait.
Boss, have you called the limo yet?
I know I got caught up in talking and forgot to call.
Call it. I need to go home too.
At that, Caleb started making the call.
Wait a minute. Please reconsider.
Reconsider? What's gonna change? I don't love you anymore, you know?
Don't say that. It was my fault. I promise I won't say anything terrible to Emma again.
Oh, we've had, this conversation many times. You're enough already. Oh, boss, I've called the limo. It'll be here soon.
Then let's wait out some. I'll go change too.
Wait, Emma, let's talk.
There's nothing to talk about.
Emma, father and mother are begging too. That you will have to rely on Sophia's money. But Sophia will pay the cancellation fee and run out of money. We won't be able to live properly.
Father, mother, if you need money, why don't you get a part-time job or something?
No way. I don't want to work at this age.
It's okay. There are still people working, even in their 70s, and father and mother are still in their 60s, right? You're still energetic.
That's not the problem. Oh, my body is heavy, and it's hard to move. And you're telling me to work?
Yes.
No way.
Are we done here? I'm going to change, so don't talk to me anymore. After I get home, I'll pack my bags and stay at a hotel for now. I have no intention of dealing with you ever again.
Hey, wait. Season this.
Please don't go. Don't abandon us. Emma?
But my sister and parents were screaming, but I quickly changed and left the venue. afterward. I rode home in the limo Caleb called, packed my bags, and headed to a hotel. I looked up apartments at the hotel, signed a lease right away, and completely cut ties with my family. Sophia ended up having to pay the $30,000 wedding cancellation fee, and my parents were so angry that they disowned her. In the end, my parents ran out of money and both had to work part-time. Sophia, having nowhere else to go after being disowned, began living as a gig worker. I continued to grow my company, increase my income, and lived happily ever after. Unknown dialogue. Please check for accuracy. Just after the funeral of my mother-in-law, whom I loved like a real mother, a letter arrived from her. It says here, a lawyer brought the letter to our house. I am Sharon, 43 years old. The letter began. If this letter has reached you, it means I am no longer in this world. I'm worried you might be crying. Seeing the familiar handwriting of my mother-in-law, my eyes welled up. My father-in-law passed away at a young age, long before my husband and I got married, and there seemed to be no close relatives in his family, with almost zero family interaction. My husband and I were not blessed with children, so we lived modestly but happily with my mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law and, DC forma. And I got along so well that my husband would say, you two are like a real mother and daughter. And I'm like, the son-in-law.
Last year, my husband passed away from cancer, and it was just my mother-in-law and me. Then, she suddenly became a victim of a traffic accident. There were many mysterious points about the accident, and for some reason, my mother-in-law was found collapsed on a road in a city where she should have had no connection, and she was hit by a passing car. The police are investigating both the incident and the accident, but her supposed bag hasn't been found. I was asked various circumstances by the police, but I didn't know much, and I couldn't respond properly due to the shock. I can't sort out my feelings about my sudden parting with my mother-in-law. The team and in my husband's case, we had a year of medical treatment and my mother-in-law was there, so we could remember him to our heart's content. We promised to overcome our grief together and continue living in harmony. While there were things to do like the funeral and administrative procedures, my mind was distracted. But once everything was over, I suddenly became lonely. My own parents had already passed away due to cancer. I have a brother, but he lives in the countryside, far away with his family. Even if I wanted to talk to my old friends from my student days, it's difficult because they are all in the midst of raising children. Then a man claiming to be a lawyer called me. Pitching from his voice, he was probably in his 70s, around the same age as my mother-in-law. He apologized for being late to notice my mother-in-law's death and said that there was something he wanted to give me as soon as possible.
It's a letter from my mother-in-law.
I had never heard that my mother-in-law had been in contact with a lawyer, and I didn't understand the meaning of receiving a letter from a deceased person. I thought it might be a scam, but I decided to meet the lawyer in case the letter was really from my mother-in-law. The letter continued, I know you're surprised by this sudden letter from me, but please listen. There is danger approaching you. Reading up to here. Enter taper and backed of nails. I ask the lawyer sitting in front of me, "Excuse me, do you know the content of this letter?" Was my mother-in-law targeted by someone? Indeed, the handwriting was my mother-in-law's. It was characterized by her unique quirks, and I recognized it instantly. But I couldn't make sense of the content. The turn of events is so dramatic, it can only be likened to a poorly crafted prank. My mother-in-law passed away in a car accident, but the driver has already been apprehended. The driver testified that he found my mother-in-law lying in the road, and that's why the discovery was late. My mother-in-law had signs of being hit, suggesting she might have lost consciousness from it. I was told, if this letter is true, my mother-in-law must have had a suspicion of who had attacked her. Did she know she would get tangled in this incident? If so, why didn't she run away? I felt the tears welling up again.
The lawyer, composed as ever, said, "I haven't read the contents, but I believe I could guess what it's about."
Somewhat irritated by his roundabout way of speaking, I ventured to ask, "So, what did you hear from my mother-in-law?"
"Well, I was the one who represented Oliver at that time and have been asked to help you," he responded.
Who's Oliver? According to the lawyer, my husband apparently has a brother 6 years older than him. I had never heard a word about this from either my mother-in-law or my husband, nor had I ever seen any photos. The lawyer started pulling out files that looked like documents from a bag by the side of the table.
"Sharon, do you know that half of the serious crimes in our country happen within families?" he said, a hint of irony in his voice. "Archugly, the place where we should feel safe and the most content, the family home, is where these heartbreaking incidents of a family member taking another family member's life occur."
And with that, he showed me an old photo featuring 4 people, a young man and woman who looked like parents, a boy and a baby. The young woman looked familiar. It was my mother-in-law. I thought the young man was a stranger at first, but he resembled my husband. Thing to the boy also bore a resemblance to the young man, undeniably appearing as father and son. It looked like it could have been taken during a trip to the beach. Proposing in front of a large ship at the port, all with happy smiles on their faces.
"The boy with the float. That's Oliver, the lawyer told me."
Upon being told, I stared at the boy, my husband's brother, who I knew nothing of. The photo looked so happy and I couldn't help but feel a pain in my chest, wondering what could have possibly happened. Does being a lawyer mean Oliver caused some incident? Was he the one who assaulted my mother-in-law this time? It must have been like more than 17 or 18 years ago, considering my husband and I were dating 15 years prior to our marriage. Otherwise, it would be strange for me to have known nothing about this.
Thus, Oliver became a recluse from the summer of his first year in junior high due to bullying, and 7 years later, he caused an incident.
Oh, Patience, it seems Oliver, in despair about his future after becoming a recluse, attempted to commit family suicide. So late at night on the day of the incident, he went into his parents' room with a knife and ended up struggling with his father, who woke up due to the noise. And even while severely injured, his father was able to subdue Oliver, and the incident ended in an attempted crime. However, upon hearing his mother scream during the struggle between his father and Oliver, my husband, who was 14 at the time, called the police. Police cars and ambulances rushed to the scene, causing a brief stir in the usually quiet residential area. At the time, societal issues such as hermits and Neaites were becoming common, and the media would sensationally report on stories like a reclusive boy planning a murder-suicide with his family. I remember hearing news like this, but I had no idea if it was referring to the husband's family or not. After all, similar stories were often reported in the media. However, it was different for those involved. So the other husband's family, unable to withstand the rumors, ended up moving house several times, almost like fleeing in the night. That run X-teen series, whether it's due to the severe injuries at the time or the subsequent stress, the father-in-law passed away a few years later. The mother-in-law and the husband changed their names back to the mother-in-law's maiden name, and it was said that they were finally able to lead a normal life in their current place.
That the perpetrator and the victim are family, so there's no outlet for emotions in family incidents. You can't fully hate or detest. Any person would be confused if suddenly put in such a complicated situation. Living under the public eye, rumors and bashing is very hard. I hope you can empathize with the feelings of the deceased who couldn't talk to you. Sharon, the man summarized.
I was at a loss for words due to the harshness of it all. I had never considered what happened to the family after such an incident, but as long as they are alive, life goes on. The in-laws must have seen the boy, Bucholi, as their adorable child. The photo of Oliver that I was shown had a smile that greatly resembled my husband's, but the button that was mistakenly buttoned couldn't be fixed, and he ended up facing the worst tragedy. Later, teen Oliver was sentenced to actual imprisonment and was said to have served time.
When the lawyer started explaining at length, I represented Oliver, remember? That the same punishment applies even for an attempt. This life imprisonment, or at least 5 to 20 years in prison. I interrupted him by asking,
minimum of 5 years. Are you saying Oliver could be out already?
Yes, he was actually released about 2 years ago.
And according to the lawyer, the prosecutor's office has a victim notification system. After a verdict is confirmed, you can apply to the prosecutor's office to be notified about the planned release date of the offender, or even after they have been released. Even without that, the Mile is Oliver's biological mother. She had been notified of his residence after his release. Just around that time, my husband had been diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing treatment, and the Mile didn't want to worry him, so it seems she couldn't consult with him.
Oliver told me at the time that he committed the crime because he was pessimistic about his future. But with some hesitation, the lawyer told me it seems he wanted money to spend.
Oliver, who had been a shut-in for many years, had started to secretly use the Miles credit card to pay for online games and online shopping, and he had been scolded by his father. Apparently, he had used a lot of money to buy weapons for a game on the evening of the crime and had his computer taken away. Asa Oliver lied to the lawyer, and his real father, mother, and brother who knew the truth said nothing. While they hoped Oliver would genuinely reflect on his actions and serve his punishment, they did not reveal the inside story of the post-release defamation and slander. Was this out of familial love? The truth be told, my Mayo was often visiting Oliver, my Bilsyuk, who was serving time in prison. Every time she went, she would come back disappointed by Oliver's unchanging, unrepentant demeanor. She was afraid to live with Oliver again after his release. But answers the danger of violence was part of the fear, but she knew if she or her son were to die, Oliver would come to me asking for money. February, as his release date approached, there was an increase in tedious paperwork. She had to decide where to house him. For actions sur crasses, my Mel decided to consult a lawyer who knew about the case and ask him to handle the procedures.
What was Oliver doing for a living 2 years ago?
It turned out that through the lawyer, she had been helping Oliver by renting an apartment for him. She would do his shopping. She was giving him money saved in her dresser and her own retirement savings, the inheritance she would receive if her son, in other words, her own child, died. After his release, literally Bitus Oliver became a shut-in again and did not work. Money is limited, and through the lawyer my Mill conveyed, I can't support you forever. You need to start working on your own, but Oliver flatly refused.
I still think my mother loved me. Yeah, she's always favored my brother. She won't give money because my brother told her not to. He made a big fuss.
The lawyer said, although it may have been an accident, the deceased was worried that Oliver might cause some trouble. He kept insisting that I give him money.
Thus Oliver became aggressive towards the lawyer as well, and seemed to be asking in detail about my Mill's income and the current life of his father and brother. Fortunately, I don't think he knows our address, but I'm worried that his apartment is near where the deceased died. At that moment, I remembered that the bag was not found. Then the doorbell rang. The only expected visitor was the lawyer. "Excuse me for a moment." I excused myself and headed to the entrance. I had a bad feeling. When I checked through the peephole, there was a man standing, who looked a lot like my husband. I could see the bag that my ma used to use. I quietly retreated to the living room and called the lawyer.
I think, it may be Oliver. What should we do? He has my Mill's bag.
My voice was shaking with tension, and the lawyer's face stiffened.
Call the police right now.
I might have meant to call the police, but I was too upset. I ran out the back door to the nearby police station. Did my Mayo and husband foresee this situation in the future? Or did they unconsciously choose a house near the police? I don't know anymore. Afterwards, when Oliver saw the police officers who came with me, he immediately tried to run away and was caught by a police officer, who then interviewed him. As I suspected, the man who looked like my husband was Oliver, in other words, my BF. The lawyer called him Oliver, which was probably his name at the time, and I had been calling him Oliver because I had seen a family photo from when he was a small boy with a hint of innocence, but in reality, he was an unhealthy-looking middle-aged man. It strangely angered me that he looked like my husband. This man had been tormenting my Mile and husband.
I'm just here to collect my share of your mom's inheritance, and it exists. I'm just here to collect my share. Because your mom's inheritance, it exists, right? My younger brother died last year. And over my inheritance.
Ignoring the police officer's questions, my brother-in-law Oliver yelled at me. What nerve does he have? I was furious. I sympathized with his childhood, being teased to the point of not going to school. But his actions thereafter were selfish and unforgivable. Is it more than anything? What I wanted to ask was, isn't that your mother's bag you're holding? What did you do to her? Did you lay hands on a frail woman? Upon hearing my words, the officers also looked at the bag that Oliver was holding. In a fluster, Oliver tried to hide it, but it was too late. As one officer reached out his hand, Oliver snarled at him.
Hey, this is my money. I can't help it. Sorry, it was less than what Mom said. I only hit her a few times to teach her a lesson for being cheeky.
Oliver's thought process made me shudder. There was no sense in his words, and he showed no remorse. For Oliver's...
Hey, you are my brother's wife, aren't you? Neither my mom nor my brother are here anymore. You have an obligation to support me, yeah.
Maybe my mother-in-law and husband hid Oliver's existence from me, fearing the situation. They must have thought that if I didn't know, I could avoid getting involved. Oh, Mrs. Sharon, you don't have that obligation. But the lawyer interrupted, but I doubted that the law would work on Oliver. Thus Oliver was ultimately an invincible man with nothing to lose. He doesn't understand common sense, nor does he seem to want to abide by the law. Maybe that's why my mother-in-law never wanted me to meet him. I can only imagine how difficult her life must have been. I haven't finished reading it all, but my mother-in-law left me a letter worrying about me, knowing her life was in danger. Her pain and sadness are heartbreaking. Because of you, my mother-in-law and husband were hurt so much. I will never forgive you. You will face the law. Indeed, the direct cause was being hit by a car. However, he left my unconscious mother-in-law on the road. He is not a person who should be left to roam the streets. I pledged to myself that I would do whatever it takes to send him back to prison.
Watching me, the lawyer stood beside me and said, "I'll help you."
Oliver was taken to the police station. The blood on my mother-in-law's bag and circumstantial evidence pointed to Oliver as the culprit, and he was sent back to prison again. I returned home with the lawyer and read my mother-in-law's letter to the end. Her letter was filled with apologies to me and overflowing love, especially the end. Life is still long. Please live a happier, freer life. Sharon? Upon seeing that, I couldn't stop my tears. My name is Tammy, a 39-year-old working in the sales department of a trading company. Since my student days, I've always had a knack for taking the lead in groups and bringing people. Even now, I'm in charge of several subordinates, and I don't lose out to the veteran male team in sales performance. I take pride in the strong support I receive as a reliable manager from my female colleagues. However, even when I come home to my apartment exhausted from work, there's no one there to welcome me. I've separated from my husband of 17 years, and I've decided to live apart from my 15-year-old daughter. The boxes in the apartment I've newly rented are still piled up, unpacked, but I don't regret it. I'm going to start over from here on out. Just allow me to explain why I've decided to start this new life. Back then, I was living in an apartment with my husband Bob and our daughter Rebecca. Bob was a college classmate, and after we ran into each other post-graduation and dated for 2 years, we got married. His appearance, Bob used to work in the sales department of a printing company until a few years ago, but now he's a web designer. After leaving his job, he became self-employed and worked from home on jobs he gets online. Our daughter Rebecca is in 8th grade. The first sign of trouble was a change in Rebecca's attitude.
What the heck? I told you to buy the moisturizing cream.
Oh, sorry, honey. I totally forgot. I promise I'll get it after work tomorrow.
You're totally useless. I can't believe it.
Rebecca started to look at me with cold eyes more often, and her words became more and more harsh each day. I guess it can't be helped because she's at that age. That's what I would tell myself at first.
Hey, Dad. Do you want to go out with me on your day off? There's a movie I want to see.
Sure, sounds fun. Which movie?
In the past, Bob would usually say, "Let's go with Mom as well." But now it seemed he had no qualms about leaving me behind.
Hey, give me some money. You heard the conversation, right? Rebecca and I are going to see a movie this weekend, and, $300 should be enough.
$300. Isn't that a bit too much? Can't you use your debit card for your account?
I'll just do it. I'll need cash too. Oh, we're gonna do some shopping and eat out too.
At some point, even Bob began to treat me poorly. Our conversations as a couple decreased, and I began to feel isolated. And one Sunday, on that day, Bob and Rebecca complained about the breakfast I had prepared.
What the hell is this? I always tell you I want my eggs over easy. Get it right?
Well, there's no need to be so upset.
And the soup doesn't taste good. Didn't I tell you before that I hate mushrooms?
But they're good for you. Can't you say something to her, Bob?
What, oh, you mean? Your fault, for not being able to do a single thing you're told. You're supposed to be an adult.
Cold words. Something was off. I wanted to know why. By the time I realized this, it was already too late. One week, when I learned that Bob was planning to go out, I decided to secretly follow him. Worked from home, as I said, and didn't have any plans to go to the barber or the doctor. So why was he going out? I was suspicious. My fears came true. Just waiting for Bob in the cafe was a young woman. a young woman in her 20s with a good figure. When they left the store, they walked arm in arm. I felt dizzy and couldn't follow them. The day I dreaded might come has arrived. Yes, I've always been afraid that Bob might run off with another woman someday. Because I didn't have confidence in my looks. Because I knew I was below average when it came to looks. Bob, on the other hand, was undeniably handsome. He was so handsome it made me wonder why he chose me. Later, I hired a detective to investigate Bob's relationship with the woman.
Your husband's mistress is a 26-year-old woman who works at a cosmetic surgery clinic. Her name is Sofia Garcia.
A patient among the evidence photos the detective showed me, there were some that were too explicit to look at directly. They were openly kissing, entering a hotel, and among those photos, there were some that had a certain other person in them. This one too. This one also shows the three of them with Rebecca too. What's going on? What does this mean?
So it was your daughter after all. It appears that your husband's relationship with Sophia is approved by Rebecca.
I was dumbstruck. I felt an acute sense of alienation and loneliness. What had I done to deserve this? Fighting back my tears, I made another request to the detective to record conversations between Bob and Rebecca. Several times a month, they would extract money from me to go enjoy their movie dates and shopping sprees. I was certain that somewhere in their banter, there must be some undeniable evidence. And days later, I played back the sound recording the detective sent me. I was speechless. She's seriously annoying. She can't even follow simple instructions and then tries to play the mother card. Well, she is technically your mom. Why don't you just dump her already? Sophia's been waiting patiently, hasn't she? About that, Rebecca, I'm thinking it's still too soon to think about divorce. So, that doesn't make any sense. Sophia's been waiting, right? I've talked it through with Sophia. I just can't stand breathing the same air as that ugly woman. Same here, but she earns the money more than me, frustratingly so. You get it, right? Is that so? I didn't really know. Yeah, that's how it is. If I divorce her carelessly, I won't be able to use that money. We've got to play this carefully. So we just pull out all the money we can and then let Sophia move in. I need to check if Sophia can handle that kind of life, and if not, I'll have to persuade her. I think Sophia will be fine. She's so understanding. Beautiful women are just different, you know? Yeah, I know. I regret it so much. The biggest mistake of my life was marrying that ugly woman.
Yeah, I know.
That day, under a hot shower, I wept copiously. I cried and cried and cried and finally made up my mind. Enough was enough. If that was their plan, so be it. I'm not stupid. Rather than let them take advantage of me, I decided it was high time to take some serious action. I remember the hardship of the following weeks well. Each day, I suppressed my emotions and proceeded with the preparations for my demise. As XCLC, even when Rebecca's middle school graduation day arrived, No profound emotions arose in my weary heart.
Oh my gosh! I can't decide on a hairstyle. It's so frustrating. Who gave me this face? Seriously?
Rebecca indeed was the spitting image of me. Kissing the mirror, I pretended to ignore her usual grouchy remarks.
Hey, I need some money. Just around $400 will do.
What's a kid going to do with $400? Besides, today is your graduation ceremony, isn't it?
Well, obviously, because it's graduation. I'm going out with friends afterwards and eating out with Dad too.
In the end, I handed Rebecca the $400. This is the last time, I thought as I did so.
Plastic surgery. Yeah, I'm saying goodbye to this ugly face that looks just like yours. I can't wait. A total transformation in a month before high school starts.
Okay. Huh. I'm surprised. I thought you would be much more against it. On pictures, what a letdown. Well, I won't say anything. It's your body. Rebecca.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right? It's only natural to want to get plastic surgery with a face like this. It's your fault.
Afterwards, I drove Bob and Rebecca to middle school. Rebecca made me stop the car a little before we got to the school. Dad and I will get off here. You can go home. You know, I don't want my friends to see you, right? Of course. I went home. I had no interest in attending the ceremony. Everything went as planned, which felt quite nice. I returned to the apartment and waited. The truck and 3 men arrived. All right, we'll pack and move things out. Given the amount of stuff, I think we should be done in about 2 hours. Thank you. I appreciate your help. That day, after I moved to a new apartment, leaving the divorce papers on the table of the old apartment. I had put in a request for a vacation at my work. I toured several places domestically, savoring the rare freedom. Perhaps I could have enjoyed it more without the persistent calls from Bob and Rebecca. A few days later, I returned to the new apartment all rested from my journey when I finally answered one of Bob's incessant calls of the day.
You finally answered. Hey, where are you? What are you doing? You sound so flustered. Is something wrong?
I'm just relaxing in my room, watching TV.
Explain yourself properly.
There's now, so what do you mean? Decide, didn't you? Last the divorce papers. Hands on. No explanation is needed. Decide, didn't you? Give the divorce papers. That's all. Allocation's needed, right?
So you knew. I know about my.
If you mean you're upset, and knew, yes,
I have no intention of breaking up.
I say good. Those with your income you can't support, Rebecca. Fight like tough luck. I'm getting divorced and taking on money too.
Who says I'm going to pay alimony?
We should talk about this matter calmly. Oh yes, you can bang Rebecca on or not. It doesn't matter to me.
I didn't really want to see them anymore, so I abruptly ended the call, turned off my phone, and cut off contact. I chose the cafe to have our discussion. At the same cafe where I first saw Bob meeting with Sophia. But only Bob came. There was no sign of Rebecca. She must be fresh out of plastic surgery. Tilgore,
Is that with you?
This is my attorney. But Mr. Johnson...
I'm beside you, brought a lawyer.
Well, did you bring the filled-out divorce papers, as I asked?
As I've said, I won't fill out such a thing. I'll tell you as many times as it takes. I've no intention of breaking up.
Do you just want the money, Anne? Do you think we can continue our marriage for that reason?
Oh, what? You said I'm after your money? You said it. Oh, you're making assumptions about, people's feelings.
I gave Mr. Johnson a nod. Mr. Johnson took out his smartphone and calmly pressed the play button. What started to play was a conversation between Bob and Rebecca from that day. Bob's face turned pale instantly. Though wonder, it's quite something to have your own bad-mouthing played out right in front of you. I don't want to breathe the same air as that ugly woman. If I carelessly break up with her, I won't be able to use the money. Virtually no matter how many times I hear them, those harsh words cut right through my heart. Knowing that this is his true feelings sends chills down my spine. Pups Bob nodded, and Mr. Johnson continued. In that case, we will file for divorce with the family court. We can also discuss the division of assets. Family court will hear the circumstances and verify the facts to decide whether or not the divorce should proceed. In this case, Mr. Johnson held his smartphone. The conversation with your daughter earlier is quite decisive. In my personal opinion, the divorce is almost certain. I came here today to talk about what comes next. I started taking out various documents. All of them were carefully prepared for this day. This chart shows how much money I gave you and when. This one is a record of utility bill payments. And this is a record of money withdrawn from our joint account. Rebecca's surgery cost quite a bit, didn't it? Eyelid surgery, eye shape correction, double eyelid surgery, nostril reduction. Eyelid surgery, eye shape correction, double eyelid surgery, nostril reduction, philtrum reduction creating tear bags, cheek and nasal bone shaving. The surgeries totaled $40,000. There's only about $20,000 left in the savings. There used to be $70,000. You've spent quite a bit, haven't you?
That was for Rebecca. I can save up again.
Do you realize that I was the one who mostly saved up that money? I was really starting to get angry. I'm okay with splitting what's left in the account for the division of property. I won't say anything about Rebecca's surgery costs. However,
What?
I expect you to pay for the emotional distress I've suffered, so keep that in mind. And,
Hey, there's more.
have you kept in touch with that woman? Sophia?
No, not really.
That's what I thought. Because, well, I hired a private investigator to look into her. She's got a criminal record, so you better be careful.
He's, a criminal record?
She was charged with fraud and was arrested. She was in cahoots with the director of another cosmetic surgery clinic.
Brian?
She must have thought you and Rebecca were easy targets. By condolences.
Yes, Rebecca. What about Rebecca's surgery then?
I hope everything went well. Otherwise, we might have to negotiate with the hospital. And I might even have to sue them.
And, we'll have to see whether the clinic would agree to a settlement in that case. Here, there are many dishonest clinics that deny their mistakes and dig in their heels, so,
Hearing Mr. Johnson's words, Bob's face noticeably turned pale. That's all for today. Send the divorce papers, okay? Direct them to Mr. Johnson, since I obviously won't be giving you my address.
Hey, please, one last thing.
He looked pitiful. Absolutely not. I left the cafe with Mr. Johnson, leaving a devastated Bob behind. According to rumors, Bob and Rebecca's life turned into a complete mess afterwards. Teachers on Bob's salary alone, it was even hard to afford an apartment and support Rebecca. Rebecca had to start doing odd jobs like newspaper delivery, and they moved to a cheaper apartment, downgrading their living standard. Rich with just his web design projects, he couldn't make ends meet and even had to take up day labor. Pitiful, really. But Bob must pull through. After all, he hasn't finished paying my alimony yet. I decided to let him pay it off in installments. Paying out $30,000 all at once would have been impossible for Bob. Given his small business, which barely covered his side income, borrowing money would have been out of the question too. I could have let him borrow money from a loan shark, but I didn't want to put that much pressure on him. A few days later, I received a call from Rebecca. As expected, the surgery was a total failure. It was far from ideal. Rebecca and I met at the cafe and had a long chat after not seeing each other for a long time. She still had bandages on part of her face.
The surgery left marks and I need another operation to remove them. It's the worst.
Still can't get in touch with that Sophia girl, huh?
Yeah, you were right. She only saw us as easy targets.
Rebecca stared out the window, a far-off look in her eyes. She seemed more mature to me than before.
Well, I gotta go now. I have to go to my part-time job and do my high school homework afterwards. I'm really busy.
Then lodge.
Thanks. Bye from Enhant. I'm really sorry for all the trouble I've caused.
Don't need to be polite all of a sudden. I won't give you any money, okay?
I won't ask for it anymore.
Thanks with a wave. Rebecca left the cafe. And that's how I ended up where I am today. I don't have many regrets. I'm satisfied with my current life. Rebecca is practically living on her own now. I have no lingering feelings for my good-for-nothing ex-husband who had nothing going for him except his looks. I saw him the other day in town. He was covered in dirt, working in construction gear and a helmet. Did he always have such gloomy eyes? He looked so different. I barely recognized him. Making a living is hard work, and he deserved to be in such a pitiful state after wasting so much money. It's not all about looks. I truly believe that now. I will continue to do my best as I am. In my eyes, the future now looks brighter than ever as I've hit the reset button on my life. Where's my daddy? I can't find him. I noticed a little girl crying in an aisle of a department store. She was nervously clutching her skirt, looking around frantically. As I approached her, she seemed a bit scared. But when I gently smiled and asked, "What's wrong? What's your name?"
She cracked a slight smile.
I'm Emma. I came here with my dad, but now I can't find him.
Upstairs, I took the girl to the lost and found, where a man in his 30s was speaking with an attendant.
Oh, Daddy.
Her father rushes up and hugs her tightly.
Emma, you can't wander off like that. I was worried.
Then the father apologized to me, and in the flow of the moment, invited me for coffee as a thank you. I wasn't overly enthusiastic about the coffee invite, but seeing the little girl's twinkling eyes as she looked up at me made me smile without thinking. This encounter was the beginning of everything for me.
My name is Olivia, and I'm 47 years old.
I work at a regular company. I married my husband Liam 20 years ago, and he had been married before. He had a 7-year-old daughter at the time named Emma. His previous wife fell seriously ill shortly after giving birth and passed away. Initially, my parents frowned upon the idea of me marrying an older man with a child, but eventually they came around and accepted our union. A kind-hearted Liam and his adoptive. I felt happy every single day after our marriage. However, that happiness didn't last forever. Liam, who had been so kind while we were dating, changed. I can't quite remember what triggered the shift. I think it was around the time I suggested adopting Emma, but it didn't seem like that was the cause. By the way, Liam rejected the idea outright, saying, "We don't need to adopt. It's a hassle." 3 years into our marriage, he started treating me like nothing more than a housekeeper. "Is dinner ready? Make sure it's on the table when I get home. Or you call this clean? Do it again." He would command, not just about household chores and cooking, but even trivial things like setting his alarm clock. Way over, Liam barely contributed to the household expenses. He was a big drinker, coming home every evening after hitting the bars. It's the scent of cologne wafting from his suit made it clear that he wasn't just at any ordinary bar. As a result, I ended up covering most of our living costs. I work too, you know. Take care of yourself. Besides, you're not providing enough for the household. You think about Emma more, for goodness sake. Unable to hold back my anger. I confront him, but he snaps. "Shut up. I only married you to have a housekeeper." He throws things and spews abusive language. If this is how Liam really feels, it's beyond cruel. Suddenly, I recall the hesitance in my parents' faces when we got married. Because of that, I couldn't bring myself to consult with them. Then one day, "You're such a useless housekeeper." As always, Liam scolds me for no good reason.
Then, stop being so mean to Mama.
Seeing her tiny trembling body, I hold her close. Perhaps even Liam felt ashamed to continue his tirade in front of her. He leaves the room defeated. The only saving grace is that he never does anything to Emma. Even Liam must find her adorable. When Liam leaves, Emma gently pats my head,
There. That wasn't scary, was it?
The only one who was scared was likely her, not me.
Don't worry. Mama, I'll protect you.
I can't help but shed tears at her words. Emma is now my only salvation. I feel pathetic for being so fearful. I have to be stronger for Emma's sake. That day, I made a strong resolution. Time flies, and it's the present. Emma, who was once 7, is now 27. I can't help but feel the weight of the years that have passed. After graduating from college, she got a job at a major company, but chose to continue living at home out of concern for me. After graduating from college, she got a job at a major company but chose to continue living at home out of concern for me. I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm fine. Living on your own will probably be better for you in the long run. Emma, I say this, but Emma is adamant about staying home. After some thought, I decide to teach her household chores and accept some money from her for living expenses each month. It's important for her to learn domestic and financial skills. Liam is still the same, out drinking all the time. And of course his tirades and verbal abuse toward me continue. Liam throws things, but never aims them at me, and he doesn't get physically violent. I think he wants to avoid being labeled as abusive. Although Liam does care for our daughter, he doesn't seem to like it when she stands up for me. But the level of his verbal abuse has escalated over the years. I still get hurt by it, but I've grown more accustomed and have learned some skills to manage Liam somewhat. One day, Emma says, "I have someone I want you to meet," and brings her boyfriend. He's already proposed, so this is basically a family meeting. Look, the man. William works in a regular company. He made a great impression with his calm demeanor and kind smile. At Liam's comment, Emma cringes, and I am about to reprimand him when William says, "You're absolutely right. Emma is beautiful and successful, too good for someone like me." But that's exactly why I feel like the luckiest man in the world for her to accept my proposal. I was truly impressed by how William responds, without a hint of displeasure, just a smile. Oh, the look on Emma's face at that moment. She was beaming like the heroine in a romantic comic. I'm certain that William will make her happy. Unlike my dad, he doesn't use harsh words or do anything people dislike. He's a wonderful man. Liam has no comeback for Emma's statement. I can't help but chuckle, and Liam shoots me a sidelong glare. Everything goes smoothly, and Emma and William eventually get married. But around the same time, they purchase a brand new single-family home. The wedding was set to take place about a year later to coincide with the completion of their new home. The plan was to start their married life in the new home right after the wedding. Until then, Emma decided to live with William. Emma was still concerned about me, but I said, "I'm fine. Just be nice with William, okay?" This time, I'm the one giving Emma that extra nudge of support. I couldn't be happier for her happiness. Today, I even went with her to pick out her wedding dress. Seeing how lovey-dovey she and William are, and how beautiful she looks in her dress, makes all past struggles seem to vanish. I got home in high spirits and was about to start preparing dinner when Liam stops me.
We need to talk.
As I sit down like I was told, I notice the divorce papers on the table. He grins in a spiteful manner.
Emma's getting married and leaving. You've served your purpose, so it's time for a divorce. Even though we're basically strangers, now it's your turn to fill these out.
I sigh. Ever since he first belittled me as a mere housekeeper. In the early days, I questioned if marrying him was a mistake, but I have no regrets. Because I got to meet Emma. Could we at least wait until Emma's wedding is over? I don't really care about separating from Liam, but I want to see Emma's wedding through.
Helen, I won't allow you at the wedding.
Liam's icy words just make me laugh weakly. But will you regret this? I think my words were a poor loser's excuse. Liam snorts. Fine, we'll divorce. But will you regret this? Thinking my words were a poor loser's excuse. Liam snorts. Fine, we'll divorce. But will you regret this? You think my words were a poor loser's excuse. Liam snorts. Fine, we'll divorce. I was going to leave anyway. But that very day, I pack up the bare essentials and head back to my parents' home. It's been a while since I've seen my parents. That they're surprised to see me, but without a word they fill in the guarantor section of the divorce papers. When I tell them about how life has been, they're angry at Liam. But they also scold me for not consulting with them about anything. Betydiagonal sessional and thou outlets, despite their stern expressions, tears glisten. You've done well, they say, embracing me as we all shed tears together. Fictions the next day. I go to the city office to submit the divorce papers. The thoughts of Emma fill my mind. Feel guilty for leaving without telling her about the divorce, but I didn't want to be a roadblock to her happiness. This is for the best. It can't be helped. I mutter, as if trying to convince myself. As I return from the city office and open the front door, I find Emma standing there like a guardian statue. Instinctively, I slam the door shut. Wait. Why is Emma here? Is this my parents' house? Maybe I'm hallucinating from thinking too much about Emma.
Mom, why did you shut the door?
I hear the sound of Emma pounding on the door, clearly angry from the other side. So it wasn't my imagination. Nervously, I open the door and Emma rushes in. Her now gone body envelopes me in a hug. She used to be so small. As I'm lost in thought, our eyes meet. Her eyes are red and bloodshot.
Is it true you're getting divorced? You're not coming to the ceremony? Why did you leave without saying anything, huh?
Seeing my confusion, my parents and William appear from behind me. According to Mom,
Emma. Olivia is worried. Oh, so sad for now, okay?
that you're of once inside. Emma wipes her eyes and blows her nose with a tissue.
How did you know I was getting divorced?
As I ask.
Yes, it's unbelievable. After all the hardship he's put you through, I'm ashamed that he's my father.
According to Emma, that same night I left, he called her. Boastfully, he told her.
I finally divorced that housekeeper.
Naiva. Liam already has someone he plans to remarry, and he intends to bring her to Emma's wedding. Given that the divorce was already an unexpected and sudden event for Emma, it's understandable if she's upset. While I'm baffled by Liam's actions,
Even if we're not related by blood, and even if you're divorced, you're still my mom. I want you at the ceremony as my mother, no matter what.
Emma makes her plea, tears streaming down her face again. Next to us, William nods and says, "My parents are on board with this too. Can't you consider Emma's wish? Is this really okay?" As I'm hesitating, my parents give me a nudge. Have some confidence. Blood isn't everything, they say.
Emma. William, thank you.
I tightly grasp Emma's hand. About 2 months after the divorce, my phone rings. That the screen displays the name of my husband, or rather my ex-husband.
Alcinouse, what the hell do you think you're doing?
He screams at me right off the bat.
What is this about? No greetings?
I respond calmly, but Liam yells and rants furiously.
He sent a certified letter to me, Ava.
Upon hearing the name Ava, I can't help but smirk. That's the name of the woman Liam plans to marry.
Ah, so that's why you're calling. I see you're now free to marry the woman you were having an affair with. Congratulations. Expect a bill for emotional damages from the divorce trial. I trust you and your wife can handle that.
In a calm tone, I let it all out. I can hear Liam stuttering on the other end of the line. He must be scrambling to catch up mentally. I continued speaking.
I had suspected your infidelity since your attitude towards me changed, but I never thought you'd actually been cheating for over a decade.
Liam frequented a local bar. It turns out he had been having an affair with the bar owner. Eva.
After marrying you, Ava confessed that she liked me for years. To encourage me to enjoy our time together while you handle the housework and child rearing. Pierce, it's not my fault. Outside, you're the one who lost your allure as soon as we got married.
I sighed as I listened to Liam's angry justification. His change in behavior toward me must have started when he began his relationship with his mistress. That must be why he never approved of Emma and me adopting to begin with. Liam seemed to have some affection for Emma as his daughter. If after adopting, at part E I said, "I'm divorcing you and taking Emma," you'd be in trouble, wouldn't you? Thinking about it that way made sense to me. You claim to love Emma, but you can't even understand her feelings. You're really pathetic. Emma said she's canceling your invitation to the ceremony. You're probably going to lose her too. And of course, I would become more domesticated after marriage. Are you clueless? Just be quiet.
What he's saying. Don't make a fool of me. And there's no way Emma would sever ties with me.
In response to Liam's irrationality, I had more to say. You've been belittling me all this time, but your pride sure is intact. Who do you think you are? That's why I told you, you'll regret it. Holding back all this time made my words even sharper. Well, compared to the verbal abuse I've received from Liam, it was nothing. Liam, who had never heard me raise my voice, either was taken aback or just shut up. I go on to explain Liam's infidelity. I found out about your affair 2 years ago when your mistress sent me a letter. It said, Liam has been mine for over 10 years now. You're too clueless to even notice. Maybe it's time for a divorce. That letter was sneakily tucked into your jacket when you were drunk. Old move. But it serves as great evidence, so it actually helped me. Even after suspecting and finding out about the affair, the reason I couldn't go through with the divorce was my concern for Emma. Though Emma was already an adult, I wanted to wait until she was married and moved out. So after the divorce, I consulted with a lawyer to demand alimony from Liam and his mistress in divorce court. By the way, learning that the statute of limitations for infidelity is 3 years from when you find out made me break into a cold sweat. Also, I'll be demanding alimony for the long-term emotional abuse I've suffered from you.
Hold on, wait a minute. Get the second so, I forget the affair for a second. There's no evidence of emotional abuse. Oh, you can't do that, and...
I chuckle, having expected Liam to say exactly that. I've kept diaries and household accounts since we got married.
I've kept diaries and household accounts since we got married. Everything you said and did is recorded, including the meager living expenses you gave me.
I didn't say it on the phone to make sure Emma wouldn't be affected, but Emma had captured several instances of Liam throwing things at me and verbally degrading my character. That with all this evidence, my lawyer gave me the green light.
Okay, wait. I was wrong. I'll divorce Abba right away. The only family that truly matters to me is you and Emma.
I can't help but laugh out loud. It just came out naturally. So you'd throw away your mistress now after finally remarrying? Emma and I don't consider you important at all. Liam was still talking, but I hung up the call and blocked his number. Actually, all that's left is to proceed with the lawyer. After this, I'm planning to consult with my lawyer again, this time about adopting Emma. A few months later, I was able to demand compensation from both Liam and his affair partner. Both of them seem to have scrambled to gather a large sum of money, perhaps even taking on debt. I imagine they're struggling now, living in poverty and burdened by society's judgment. Especially for Liam's affair partner, who runs a snack bar, the damage must be immense. In businesses that rely on customer relations, trust is everything. Frankly, it serves them right. Today is Emma and William's wedding. As she declared, Emma didn't let Liam attend the ceremony. Whether or not I'll be able to adopt Emma is still under discussion with the lawyer, but even if it falls through, the bond between Emma and me is strong. Emma, draped in a pure white dress, is smiling happily with William. I'm the father of the bride, let me go. It seemed like there was a faint sound of a commotion with security outside the venue, but it must have been my imagination. After the ceremony, Emma and Liam asked me if I wanted to move in with them in their new home, but I declined. Astri, I'll be there in a heartbeat if you two ever need help. Value your time together as a married couple. I handed over the money Emma used to give me for living expenses when she was single, along with a card gift at the party. I had been saving it secretly for a time when Emma would need it. I'm thinking of renting an apartment nearby to keep an eye on Emma and the others that my son and his wife gave me right in front of them. But we all knew what they'd been doing behind. Apologize to Brian and Marlene and bow your head to the floor. At my birthday party, my husband, Corey, yelled at me and shoved my shoulder, trying to make me sit on the floor. Marlene, my daughter-in-law, looked up as if searching for something, her face downcast. I turned from my angle. I could see a malicious smile forming on her lips, which otherwise appeared as though she was about to cry. Would you say the same if you saw this? Would you say the same if you saw this? I presented something I had prepared in front of Corey's eyes. The time had come to reveal everything after being continuously mocked. My name is Sienna, and I turned 73 this year. Corey had stayed on as an advisor at his company, even after retirement, but finally stepped down last year to enjoy his retirement. We've led a quiet, if ordinary, married life since we wed, without even arguing much. Our eldest son, Brian, got married a few years back and moved out. With our parenting duties complete and no other worries, life was good. Though we're not exactly swimming in money, we've saved up a decent amount for our retirement. Living together with just Corey, there's really nothing we lack. We expected this peaceful life to continue. The change in our lives came with our eldest son and his wife moving in. Initially, they lived in a rental apartment, but they recently expressed a desire to live with us. Chill. Brian's workplace is closer to our home. Marlene is a housewife, so she doesn't have to worry about commuting. At first, Brian was the one who talked to me about it. Marlene has generally kept her distance from our home. It's not that we have a bad relationship, but something always felt off. But Corey tells me I'm overthinking, but I can't help but feel it's women's intuition. However, this wasn't the first time the topic of living together came up. They had initially refused the idea when they first got married. Back then, they wanted to live independently. Now they've been married for a few years, and they have a feeling there's more to this decision to move in. I'm not particularly enthusiastic, but Corey feels differently. He's always enjoyed a bustling home and seemed a bit lonely since the kids moved out. He thinks that once our grandchildren are born, things will get even livelier. If Corey agrees, then I can't be the only one to oppose it. They decided to move in during the month when their apartment lease was up for renewal. With plans already this far along, Marlene has yet to pay us a visit. We're going to be living under the same roof, so it seems courteous to at least say hello. Marlene's ongoing absence makes me wonder if she's actually against moving in. In the end, Marlene showed up on moving day. She arrived with the movers.
Let's get along from now on, okay?
When I smiled and said that, Marlene replied softly,
Nice to meet you.
She wouldn't look me in the eyes. I swear, there was no harassment from my side, no mother-in-law and daughter-in-law drama or anything like that. But still, her attitude, even for someone as patient as me, it was irritating. Corey didn't seem to mind much and started showing the newlyweds to their room. We had made some repairs and adjustments to the room they'd be staying in, considering it would now be a shared living space. The room had even been renovated to their specifications.
Huh. Is it really this small?
While straightening their shoes in the entryway, I heard Marlene's annoyed voice coming from deep within the house.
Do you really intend to cram us into this tiny room? I can't breathe in here.
Marlene raised her voice as if she were the victim. I quickly made my way into the house. Corey looked perplexed, scratching his head in front of a red-faced Marlene complaining about the small room. And small? This is one of the larger rooms in this house. It's even renovated exactly as you asked. What more do you want? I couldn't help but let my annoyance seep into my voice since Corey was taking heat. That's when Marlene finally looked at me. For the first time since we greeted each other, she locked eyes with me.
So you're Sienna? You plan to shove us into this storage closet?
I was taken aback by her harsh words. It was absurd. Brian also tugged at her sleeve, saying, "Hey." But Marlene was unstoppable. She started talking about how her family's home had rooms far more spacious than this just for storage. She stressed how the stress came from the difference in lifestyle and standards between her family and ours. She even started talking about how rich her family was and how poor we were in comparison. I never thought Marlene could have so many complaints. I thought even the tolerant Corey would get mad at this point, but he was just calmly trying to soothe the Marlene. Pain from Ryan's attitude. I could tell this was a usual occurrence for them. Marlene kept complaining for about 15 minutes, but finally seemed to realize that nothing would change by doing so. She entered her room and slammed the door shut. Corey and I exchanged glances and sighed. So began our tumultuous life with the newlyweds. I had hoped that Marlene would eventually get used to this home. After all, as a housewife who wasn't working, she'd be spending most of her time here. I can't deny that I had some ulterior motives for starting this joint living arrangement. As I've gotten older, household chores requiring physical strength have become more challenging. To the find of Tishan, though I wish Marlene would lend a hand. She stays cooped up in her room all day and doesn't help out at all. I handle the laundry, putting it in a hamper in the laundry room and then hanging it out to dry. Once dry, I fold the laundry and leave it in front of my eldest son and daughter-in-law's room. Marlene only leaves her room during mealtimes. She devours the food I make while complaining about it. Corey doesn't seem concerned about Marlene's attitude at all. And since moving in, my eldest son and his wife utility bills and food costs have doubled. Housework has doubled too. Despite all this, they don't contribute to household expenses. I felt emotionally and financially cornered. One day, I must have looked worn out. Corey brightly remarked, "Your birthday's coming up soon." I looked at the calendar, and sure enough, there was a mark on my birthday, a tradition Corey maintains every year.
What would you like for your present this year?
I sensed Corey was trying to cheer me up. I felt like I couldn't stay down in the dumps forever. Actually, there is something I want. I told Corey I wanted a wristwatch. The one I had was broken, and when I tried to get it repaired, they told me the parts were unavailable. Even though I don't usually wear a watch, I feel uneasy without one when I go out.
Oh yeah, it was broken. Look forward to your wristwatch.
He said with a bright smile. Seeing that smile, I found myself smiling genuinely for the first time in a while. I decided to make an effort to avoid looking miserable or irritated. A few days later, I accidentally overheard Corey and Brian talking in the yard. It seemed they were planning my birthday gift, a wristwatch.
Paid you buy mom's watch with this money. I'm not sure what women like, so consult with Marlene, and let's keep it under 1K dollars so mom won't feel overwhelmed.
With that said, Corey handed Brian a bank envelope. Probably it has $1,000 in it.
Howdy,
I felt a bit guilty for eavesdropping. But they seemed unaware of my presence and left. That was quite a splurge for Corey, and I couldn't help but feel delighted. Marlene's snide comments didn't bother me that day. However, that evening, I accidentally overheard something unbelievable. That night, the wind was howling, making it hard to sleep. I couldn't fall asleep and thought about having something warm to drink. Careful not to wake Corey, I slid out of bed. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed light coming through a gap in the living room door. I heard voices talking. I tiptoed closer and saw my eldest son and his wife, Marlene, sipping beers in the living room. Not wanting to deal with them, I decided to go back to my room without my warm drink. Just then, I heard Marlene say, "So for Sienna's birthday gift." I froze and listened.
We know she won't appreciate the value of a watch, so I just got her a $10 one from some knick-knack store.
Marlene chuckled. I couldn't believe my ears. I thought my son would scold her, but he joined in the laughter.
smart thinking. We can use the extra money for a trip, my son added.
I felt dizzy for a moment, surprised my son would say such a thing. And to top it off, they were mocking me, saying I wouldn't even notice it's a toy watch.
Sienna's gonna cherish this toy watch. Hilarious, right?
Marlene laughed so hard it sounded like she couldn't contain herself. I retreated to my room, unnoticed. I felt like crying, but anger surged within me instead. Enough was enough. I vowed to make them regret their actions. You know, it's my birthday, and I was thinking of inviting my sisters and their husbands for dinner and breakfast. Peter paused my questions. I said to Marlene this was the first time we invited my sister and her husband for a meal since we started living with the eldest son and his wife. Before we moved in together, we used to invite them for dinner frequently, but that changed, perhaps out of consideration for the eldest son and his wife.
That's fine, but I won't be helping with any of the preparations. You invited them, so you handle it.
It's my birthday, and she has no intention of doing any preparations. I've never heard of the birthday person having to do the hosting, but I kept my composure. Getting upset would ruin my plan. Sure, I'll whip up something delicious, I said, feigning enthusiasm. Marlene scoffed.
You're really going all out for your birthday, huh?
I heard her but pretended not to. It's all for the birthday scheme. So here I am in charge of all the preparations for my own birthday party. Cooking is a joy for me, so I'm not stressed about it. I was also looking forward to seeing my sister and her husband. Eteric, who's an ex-military man. It's a straightforward guy who hates dishonesty. He's usually calm and kind, but as my sister often warns, you don't want to see him angry. They both get along well with Corey and are currently taking golf lessons together. Derek is the kind of guy who checked in with me when I started living with my eldest son, asking if everything was okay. I have a feeling he'll be on my side. Flipping through my collection of recipes. It's Twex and Sylve. I decided to prepare something both my sister and her husband enjoy. I can't help but smile as I do this. Fast forward to the day of my birthday, and I'm swamped. It's ironic that the birthday person should be so busy, but what can you do? Marlene is not lifting a finger, just lazing around the house. She occasionally sneaks into the kitchen to snack on something and leaves. Ori has gone to his golf classes and will bring my sister and her husband back when he returns. I hurry to get everything ready in time for the evening. As for my eldest son, he took the day off to gamble. I've always warned him to be moderate, especially since he's had a gambling issue back in college. Helpments but Maury, but ever since he started dating Marlene, it seems like he's picked up his old habits again. They even go gambling together on their days off. By the evening, everything is set. Ori arrives with my sister and her husband. Act brings me a large bouquet of flowers, instantly lifting my mood. I still love my birthday, no matter my age, especially when celebrated by those close to me. I repeatedly say thank you as I accept the bouquet. Marlene, seeing the large bouquet, mutters under her breath.
They'll just die anyway.
And I quietly scold her, saying, "Don't be rude." Usually, I let her comment slide, but not this time. She seems surprised, then clicks her tongue in annoyance. Her pretty face is spoiled by her pettiness. My sister greets me. It's been a while. Marlene immediately puts on a charming smile. My sister is so naive. She believes there are no bad people in the world and has no clue about Marlene's two-faced nature. We gather in the living room for the birthday celebration. I've prepared a large table with all of my sister and her husband's favorite foods, as well as Corey's. I intentionally left out my son and Marlene's favorites. Marlene seems to notice this and whispers something to my son. Ignoring her, I start the birthday party by saying, "Thank you all for coming today. It always feels good to have your birthday celebrated, no matter how old you get." My sister smiles and says, "You never change, do you?" Bree and Derek start sipping their wine. My eldest son and his wife remain sulky, silently digging into their meal. They occasionally nod or hum at our conversation, not really participating otherwise. As we near the end of dinner, my sister brings out a birthday cake from the fridge. I didn't prepare a cake myself, so this is a happy surprise. Although the number of candles is random, it reminds me of childhood birthdays I spent with my sister. We have a gift for you too. Take it as a present from all three of us, says Corey, nudging my eldest son. I catch Marlene flashing a sly grin at that moment. My eldest son hands me a beautifully wrapped box with a ribbon.
This watch you wanted costs around $1,000. Taking good care of it.
He says, a bit arrogantly. Corey seems a bit annoyed by his tone, but keeps it in check to maintain the atmosphere. Thank you. It's a very expensive watch, I say, taking the ribbon box in both hands. May I open it? I ask Marlene, who smiles and says, of course. She rarely graces me with such smiles. I carefully untie the ribbon and unwrap the box. Inside is a watch with a thin leather strap. I can instantly tell it's cheap, even its second-hand wobbles. Is this the watch you picked out, Marlene? How lovely, I say, holding it up for her to see.
I chose one that would suit you. Cyan. It's a lifelong item, considering the price.
Wayne grins and replies, that's the last straw. How much more is she going to mock me? That's without a word. I toss the watch into the trash. The room falls silent.
How dare you? I just apologize to Brian and Marlene. It's a $1,000 watch. Daphne picked it out for you.
Ori is the first to raise his voice. He grabs my shoulder, trying to force me to kneel. Marlene feigns tears, muttering. I can see the corners of her mouth turning up in a smile. What do you have to say now after seeing this? I handed Corey a printout. It was a webpage showing the exact same watch I had just thrown away, listed at a mere $10, tax included. The packaging and ribbon were identical to what we had. I know you wanted to get me a watch. These two trampled all over that sentiment of yours. I revealed to Corey and my sibling-in-law what I had accidentally overheard. They had taken the $1,000 given to them by Corey, bought a $10 watch, and planned to lie and say it was a $1,000 gift for me. They intended to use the remaining money for a vacation. At just 6-7 feels as in the corner of the living room were a few brochures of hot spring resorts that had been set aside while cleaning. My sibling-in-law seemed to have noticed them. You thought I wouldn't recognize the value of things, so you figured you could give me a toy watch without me knowing. You seemed pretty pleased talking about it. It's enough with the mockery, I told my oldest son and his spouse. It was rare for me to speak up so strongly.
Sienna, that's outrageous. Stop these weird accusations. Are you trying to shame me in front of everyone? You're the one who's always lying.
Marlene started accusing me of constantly lying, saying that I've been telling the neighbors she doesn't do any housework, even though she does all of it, or claiming I cooked today's meal. I was speechless.
Right, Brian?
Marlene turned to Brian for agreement after her rant.
Yeah, sorry, Brian chimed in, probably not wanting to offend his aunt and uncle. Ace your side, you. Oh, that...
Bitchin'. Teacher quietly picked up the watch from the trash can.
As this is a toy that me, Ocean, so this is not a $1,000 watch.
Back with a controlled fury, he muttered this and threw the watch at the feet of my eldest son and his wife. The sound of breaking plastic filled the air. Corey, who seemed to come back to his senses after Derek's words, loosened the grip he had on my shoulder. My eldest son and his wife looked pale as ghosts.
You've been making fools of us, haven't you?
You could see Brian trembling at Corey's words. He knew all too well that when Corey, who rarely gets angry, does get angry.
Look, it's a waste to give expensive gifts to someone who doesn't appreciate their value. Or could make better use of that money by traveling, she brazenly declared.
At the next moment, Corey's angry shout echoed. He promptly ushered the couple out and dragged them all the way to the front door. But outside, he locked the door behind them. From the other side of the door, the voice of my eldest son and his wife pleading to be let back in was audible, but neither Corey nor my younger sister and her husband had any intention of letting them in. Ori apologized to me, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize all of this sooner." Hearing his sincere apology made me feel like this was the best birthday ever. After that, Ori never allowed our eldest son and his wife back into the family home. And right as the habitation was over, the belongings were sent to Marlene's parents' house, and any further contact was strictly ignored. As in, my eldest son and his wife were suddenly homeless, taking refuge at Marlene's family home. However, there was no place for them there, as Marlene's sibling and their spouse were already living with the parents. Soon enough, they were kicked out and had to rent a small apartment to start their new life. Rumors were they had no savings, possibly spent on gambling, and Marlene's brother had to cover their apartment deposit. It seemed Marlene had already been cut off financially from her own family, with a strict warning that no more help would come. Marlene, once a housewife, was now working part-time to support their new life. As for me, life had become easier since we stopped living with them. I finally had time for myself. Corey also started to treat me better than before. And despite the difficulties, I felt like our marital bond had strengthened, and perhaps this was the happiest we've ever been. What I cherish most is my family. I thought they felt the same way. But that was until I inherited my father's estate. But for better or worse, my life took a complete 180.
Can you stand in line at this store before it opens tomorrow and buy 10 of these, for me?
My husband John, busy packing merchandise, makes a living by reselling items. He works at a small insurance company, but he missed the promotion wave and is nearing 40 with a salary equivalent to a new hire.
I can't. I have a part-time job tomorrow morning.
To decline, but the extra income my husband earns makes a difference in our lives. I'm Katie. While being a mother of 2 kids, I also work part-time to help support our household. We struggle to make ends meet on my husband's salary alone, so I want to work full-time. But our youngest is still in preschool, so I'm planning to stick with part-time work for another year or 2. I work every day, save every penny. Because when you cut corners in life, it's like your spirit gets chipped away too. Oh, how I wish I could win the lottery or something. I've noticed that this thought crosses my mind more often than it should. I know a lot of people who talk about their husbands dying just for the insurance money, so I guess I'm doing alright, all things considered.
But my husband keeps saying things like, maybe I should aim for fire. So I can retire early and take it easy.
But honestly, he's all talk and shows no signs of actually making it happen.
I'd like a little more breathing room in our current life, not just in retirement.
Although I voiced my concerns, there's no solution in sight. But for now, all I can do is focus on the work and parenting tasks at hand.
Oh, by the way, my dad and his friends are coming to stay this weekend.
Caught off guard, I took a hard look at my husband's face.
This weekend? It's Thursday today. They're coming tomorrow? You should told me sooner.
My tone got harsh because I don't get along with my in-laws. I lost my mom when I was young, and my dad raised me on his own. My in-laws are all about appearances, and just because I didn't have both parents when we got married, they deemed me uneducated. I had my challenges growing up without siblings, but my dad was both loving and strict. Lately, he's been under the weather, probably from the strain of raising me single-handedly, and I worry about him. I visit my childhood home about once a month, but it seems neither my in-laws nor my husband are pleased with that. Whenever I go to my childhood home, I don't always take the kids with me. Last week, my mother-in-law Jennifer complained about this over the phone. Now my in-laws will be at our home for the next 3 days. Just thinking about it makes my stomach turn.
Sorry. I forgot to tell you.
My husband says this casually. He won't lift a finger when his parents are here and doesn't even bother spending time with them. I'm the one who has to handle the chores, take care of the kids, and entertain my in-laws as well. But like it or not, they're coming. The next day, I went to the airport to pick them up and brought them to our apartment.
Still living in this place. I see. You should move to the town where we live. We could even start living together sooner if you want.
I've heard the same spiel from my mother-in-law every time she visits. I deliberately live far away because I don't want to live with my in-laws. And for the record, it was your son who first decided to live in this area. I make these sarcastic remarks in my mind while making coffee and forcing a smile. It's in the in-law household. What my mother-in-law says goes, and my father-in-law just nods along in agreement. Since they arrive in the middle of a weekday, my husband and kids aren't around, and I become their sole target for criticism. Isn't by evening, when the kids return home, my in-laws switch gears. All of a sudden, they're the generous grandpa and grandma, willing to buy the kids anything they want. Oh, look how big you've gotten. Are you enjoying school? How about preschool? If there's anything you want, I'll buy it for you. I dote on my sons like this. Well, my son chats about school and keeps my in-laws entertained. I get started on preparing dinner, grateful for the small reprieve. As dinner was ready, my husband walked through the door. Addition, while we were all eating, my in-laws suddenly brought up the idea of living together. So, do you like staying at Grandma's house? You had fun during the summer vacation, didn't you? If you live with Grandma and Grandpa, we'll buy you whatever you want and every day will be fun. trying to get the kids on her side, my mother-in-law gets this fake smile from me in response. Jennifer, that's not a subtle matter. If the kids take it seriously, it'll become a problem. Hearing that, my mother-in-law rolls her eyes and looks at me. Oh, so they shouldn't take it seriously? Some families with kids the same age as our grandchildren just moved into our neighborhood. It's lively, and I'm envious. Even though she says that, it has nothing to do with us. Plus, if we lived together, I'd feel even more like a servant than I do now. It's not a big deal. We might consider it eventually. But we like it here, so not just yet. He sounds like he's gently pushing back, but that's definitely not the case. My husband seems gung-ho about living with his parents, completely ignoring my feelings on the matter. Why can't he be more assertive in declining his parents' request? He's really not reliable. Contrary to how I feel, he starts talking about finances. I think life would be easier if we lived with my parents. And if we moved, the kids would have to change schools, so it might be better while they're still young. My in-laws were delighted and offered to help, but there's no way I can accept it. Once you take any financial aid from them, it's easy to imagine them reminding you about the favor every chance they get, even if you've paid them back. Also, right now we live about a 20-minute drive from my parents, but if we move in with my in-laws, that distance will increase and make it much harder for me to visit my own family. Avoiding a clear answer, I finish dinner. As the kids and my in-laws begin to take a bath together. I'm left with no moment to catch my breath, immediately starting on cleaning up after the meal. My husband is drinking beer and watching TV. How long will this kind of life continue? Both the money issues and the attitudes of my husband and in-laws weigh on me. If only we had enough money, we could live without these complicated ties. But these thoughts, I somehow managed to get through the 3-day stay with my in-laws and went back to my daily routine of childcare and part-time work. That day came. My father, William, passed away. His body had been weak due to a hard life when he was younger, and he quickly succumbed to pneumonia after catching a cold. He passed away shortly after being hospitalized, so I couldn't even visit him. I let my only parent die alone. Telling Dad, I'm sorry. During the funeral, I couldn't help but apologize to my father over and over again in my mind as I cried. I can't help but think that if I had been more attentive, Dad might have gone to the hospital sooner. But what's the point of thinking about that now? The funeral is over and a few days have passed. I still haven't recovered from the grief of losing my father. It's then that my husband spoke these words. It's been over a week since William passed away. Katie, you've got to pull yourself together. The kids are worried, you know. There's no point in staying down forever. He's right. Staying downcast isn't good for the kids. I get it. But it's only been a week, you know. Just as I was thinking that, my husband dropped a bombshell. Let's go on a trip with Mom and the others. That won't bring William back. Besides, you still have my dad. It's like you have an extra dad, so why the excessive grief, haha? pulled back to reality in the midst of my sadness. I retorted, "What the heck is that about? John, would you say the same thing if one of your parents passed away?" Even as I responded emotionally, he just laughed it off with an expression as if it was no big deal. "Well, my parents are tough cookies, lol." In that moment, I couldn't hide my astonishment at the fact that I've been living with someone so emotionally tone-deaf as a family member. Even as I shouted that, the economic realities made divorce seem like a distant dream. And there's no way I'd hand my kids over to him. Knowing he has the upper hand, my husband just laughed it off. What was I thinking marrying someone like this? Why did I marry someone like this? After yet another moment of regret, I slept in a different room that night. We haven't spoken a word since I brought up divorce. Judging by the fact that he neither apologizes nor tries to make amends, he doesn't seem to be showing any remorse. Then one day, I learned for the first time that I was to inherit some land from my father's will. Land? I had never heard a word about this from my dad before he passed away. I think it must be some mistake. I checked multiple times with the lawyer who was holding my father's will, but it seemed that inheriting the land was confirmed. How had he been getting by with so little money? But the details remain a mystery. A few days later, after taking care of the inheritance paperwork, my still estranged husband spoke to me. I can't forgive him yet for brushing off my father's death, but when it comes to divorce, issues like custody and living arrangements make me anxious. So, I decided to revert to our old way of life for now, still grappling with my father's passing. I decided to change the subject and told my husband about the land inheritance. That turned out to be a mistake. I may not know much about land, but I immediately noticed a change in his demeanor. As he asked, he kept stealing glances at me, gauging my reaction. I think it's about $50,000. I had a bad feeling, so I quickly lied about the amount. In reality, I have no idea how much the land is worth. I'm not interested in the land, so I just went through the formalities of the inheritance and came home. Hearing this, my husband, visibly excited, said, "Now we can make life easier for Dad and others. We could even live together and finally have some financial wiggle room." I reiterated that I had no intention of living together with others, but my husband skipped off to the bedroom anyway. Feeling like I'd gotten myself into a complicated situation, I went to sleep without figuring out what to do with the inherited land. It was early the next morning. I was woken up by a loud doorbell ringing, and when I opened the door, there stood my father-in-law. "David and mother-in-law. It's Jennifer." "David." "But Jennifer, what's the sudden visit about? Were you planning to come today?" Still groggy and confused, I asked, only for Jennifer to assertively say, "We're coming in. We have a favor to ask today." Still in shock, I see my husband, who's home because it's Sunday, waking up and exchanging glances with his parents. No sooner had they arrived than my mother-in-law, seated in the living room, offered a gift she'd brought, unusually so. I bought these muffins first thing in the morning. The cafe is so popular, it gets on TV all the time. I wanted Katie to try them, so I lined up before the shop opened to buy them. Hearing her talk so excitedly, I looked at my husband. He had the same expression he'd had last night after discussing the land. Ah, I see. Sure, if you suddenly get your hands on $50,000, you might want to start talking about living together at your in-laws. According to my husband and his parents, the plan is to sell the inherited land, turn it into cash, and then use that money to renovate their house so both families can live there. So that's the deal with the gift. I have to think the only gift I get for $50,000 is a muffin. I felt underestimated. I began to think that maybe it would be better to find out the real value of the land. So, while they were busy discussing their dream home, I decided to look up the average land prices on my smartphone. I'd thrown out that $50,000 number arbitrarily. What if the actual value was much less? Dun thought. I searched for land prices based on the area and size. Wait, $2.04 million? As unbelievable as it seemed, it looked like my father's land was worth much more than a mere $50,000. If this is true, I'm in my resolve. I spat out. I have no intention of selling my father's land or agreeing to live with you.
Stop making plans without consulting me. Then I left the house.
There were things I wanted to confirm away from prying ears. I made several phone calls that day and timed my return for after my in-laws had gone home. For the next 2 weeks, I was quietly making preparations for a plan that no one noticed. Then came the day to put that plan into action. Uncharacteristically, I greeted my in-laws fully prepared. They arrived with gifts and started talking about their dreams for a new home. My husband joined in, so to stop him, I shoved divorce papers in his face.
Katie, stop kidding around. You're not seriously thinking of divorcing me, right? Then I left the house just to keep $50,000 piece of land all to yourself. Even if we divorce, I won't give up custody.
Thinking I wouldn't go through with the divorce, my husband acted confident. That was until I pulled out my mobile phone and his face turned pale. I'm connected with your boss. To Mr. Cooper, right now. You haven't been showing up for work lately, have you? You're too focused on buying up products for your side gig, neglecting your main job.
I say, Mr. Cooper, this isn't what it looks like.
John, I got concerned because you haven't shown up for work all week due to illness. Though I contacted Katie and now I find out you're faking it. Those you're fired, effective immediately.
But my husband was sobbing, trying to explain himself to his boss. But the decision was final. He was fired. Seeing all this, my in-laws raised a fuss, calling me a terrible wife for entrapping their son. They insisted he should divorce me, so I succeeded in getting them to sign the divorce papers.
I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me.
My husband was crying and begging until the end, but it seems he couldn't defy his mother's words. So, I ended up in a custody battle, But with him being unemployed and neglectful towards childcare, there's no way he's winning custody. Things are going my way just like I hoped. Oh, speaking of that land, my dad owned a piece of property in Manhattan. I found out it's worth quite a bit online and got in touch with a legal advisor who helped my dad with land matters. Turns out, my dad had been using the property as a paid parking lot. The reason he had almost no liquid assets was because he was living off the income from the parking lot. Located in a busy area, the lot brings in more money than we were making combined. Right now, I've kept the parking lot running and I've reduced my work hours to part-time. I've kept the parking lot running and I've reduced my work hours to part-time. We're peacefully living in the family home I had left behind, just the kids and me. As for my ex-husband, he moved back in with his parents after the divorce and job loss. Turns out, he's in debt because his mom went on a spending spree, thinking she'd have access to my money. He also failed at reselling stuff and is stuck with excess inventory. And once they found out the land is worth more than $50,000, my ex and his parents came at me, all desperate for a reunion. I have no intention of dealing with them anymore. We're planning to move soon, keeping the kids' education in mind. The players may have changed, but family still means the world to me.